At 1:25, the motorcade moves into the downtown area. Death is 6 minutes away. In a warehouse, a sniper with a rifle poised waits.
He sought to continue the battle for a return to power, but his were the feeble words of a man who was already dead and refused to believe it.
I was deeply saddened last evening, as all men of goodwill must have been, by the senseless slaying of Dr. Martin Luther King.
From the shadows of history to moments that shook the world, these assassinations didn't just claim lives, they changed the very course of nations and history itself. I'm James Hanson, and today we're delving into the assassinations that left an undeniable mark on history and continue to spark debate. These aren't just tragic moments, they're stories of power, betrayal and consequences. So, buckle up as we uncover the deadly events that reshaped history forever. This is our countdown of the top 10 assassinations that changed the world. Starting off our list at number 10, it's the assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister Olaf Palmer on February the 28th, 1986, which remains one of the most shocking and enduring political mysteries of the 20th century.
The world has lost a statesman of quite unique caliber, particularly in his pursuit of peace, whether East and West in nuclear disarmament or in the Third World in ending conflicts.
Palmer was shot while walking home with his wife Lisbeth after attending a film in central Stockholm. The assassin, a lone gunman, approached the couple from behind and fired 2 shots, killing Palmer instantly. The attack occurred in a busy street, but despite numerous witnesses, the killer's identity has remained unknown for decades. The Swedish investigation, one of the largest in the country's history, initially pointed to several theories, including a potential left-wing extremist motive or links to international terrorism. In the 1990s, a man named Christer Pettersson was convicted, but his conviction was overturned on appeal due to a lack of evidence. For years, the case was plagued by confusion, false leads and conflicting theories, until 2020, when Swedish authorities announced they were closing the investigation. They suggested that Stig Engstrom, a man who had been at the scene and was previously considered a witness, might have been the killer, though he died in 2000. Despite these developments, many questions about the motive and broader implications of Palmer's assassination remain unanswered, leaving the case shrouded in intrigue.
She arrived in a bulletproof vehicle, and as I was glancing back towards her, I heard several shots ring out, I think 3, and she went down. The timing was right with the shots, so that's when she was killed right there.
Moving on now to number 9, let's talk about Benazir Bhutto, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was assassinated on the 27th of December 2007 during an election rally in Rawalpindi. Bhutto, who had returned from exile earlier that year to contest the elections, was the first woman to lead a Muslim-majority country and a prominent figure in Pakistan's political landscape. She was shot in the neck as she exited her vehicle, and a suicide bomber detonated an explosive device shortly afterwards, killing dozens, including Bhutto. Her assassination sent shockwaves through Pakistan and the world, sparking riots and widespread unrest. Bhutto had long been a target of extremist groups, particularly the Taliban, due to her liberal stance and her push for democratic reforms. The Pakistani Taliban, led by Bayatullah Masood, later claimed responsibility for the attack, although doubts about the full scope of the conspiracy remain. The investigation into Bhutto's death was highly controversial. Pakistan's government at the time, led by Pervez Musharraf, was accused of failing to provide adequate security and mishandling the inquiry. A UN investigation launched in 2009 criticised Pakistan's failure to protect Bhutto and suggested that the authorities might have been complicit in the attack's aftermath. Her death destabilised Pakistan, leaving a legacy of political chaos that continues to affect the country today. Next up is the killing of Robert F. Kennedy, the US Senator and former US Attorney General, which happened on the 5th of June 1968. It occurred shortly after he delivered a victory speech following his win in the California Democratic primary. Kennedy, who'd emerged as a leading candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination, was shot by Sirhan Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian, at close range in the kitchen pantry of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Kennedy had been campaigning on a platform of social justice, civil rights, and ending the Vietnam War, and his assassination marked a tragic moment in American history, coming just 5 years after the assassination of his brother, President John F. Kennedy. Sirhan, who was apprehended immediately after the shooting, later claimed he was angered by Kennedy's pro-Israel stance, although many have speculated about other potential motives, including mental instability or possible political conspiracies. Kennedy was rushed to the hospital but died from his wounds a day later, on the 6th of June 1968, at the age of just 42. His death devastated his supporters and deepened the national sense of loss and disillusionment during the tumultuous 1960s. Despite Sirhan's conviction, questions about the circumstances of Kennedy's assassination and potential cover-ups have persisted, adding to the enduring mystery surrounding the event. And number 7 on our list now is the assassination of Leon Trotsky, the Russian revolutionary and Marxist theorist, which happened on the 20th of August 1940 in Mexico City, where he had been living in exile since the late 1920s. Trotsky had been a key figure in the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 and the subsequent establishment of the Soviet Union. However, after Joseph Stalin consolidated power, Trotsky was exiled due to the opposition he had to Stalin's policies and leadership. Over the years, Trotsky continued to criticize Stalin's dictatorship, advocating for permanent revolution and the spread of socialism globally. On the day of the assassination, a Spanish communist agent named Ramon Mercader, posing as a sympathizer, gained access to Trotsky's compound. Mercader, armed with a pickaxe, attacked Trotsky in his study, striking him in the head. Despite being severely wounded, Trotsky actually survived for a day before eventually succumbing to his injuries. Trotsky's murder was widely believed to have been orchestrated by Stalin's regime, which saw him as a dangerous rival. The Soviet Union had long sought to eliminate Trotsky, and Stalin's secret police, the NKVD, were implicated in the plot. The assassination marked the violent culmination of Stalin's efforts to erase Trotsky and his legacy from Soviet history. Trotsky's death highlighted the brutal internal politics of the Soviet state during this period.
And by virtue of the power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are henceforward and forever shall be free.
Moving on to 6th place on our list now, and it's the killing of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, on the evening of the 14th of April 1865, while he was attending a play at Ford's Theatre in Washington, D.C. Lincoln had just overseen the Union's victory in the Civil War and delivered his second inaugural address, which had called for national reconciliation. However, his assassination marked a tragic end to his leadership and the hopes for healing a divided nation. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and Confederate sympathizer, was the assassin. Booth, angered by Lincoln's policies, particularly his push for the abolition of slavery, plotted to kill the president. And during a performance of the play Our American Cousin, Booth entered the presidential box at Ford's Theatre and shot Lincoln in the back of the head. After shooting Lincoln, Booth leaped onto the stage and fled the scene, shouting "Sic semper tyrannis," translating as "Thus always to tyrants." Lincoln was rushed to a nearby boarding house where he died the following day at the age of 56. Booth was hunted down and killed by Union soldiers, while his co-conspirators were arrested and tried. Lincoln's assassination stunned the nation and plunged it into a period of mourning. His death marked a profound turning point in American history, leaving the nation to grapple with the legacy of slavery and the challenges of Reconstruction.
This man was Babu, father to India's teeming Hindu population. To the world, he was Mohandas K. Gandhi, apostle of peace, a great man.
OK, we're halfway through our list now, and moving on to number 5 is the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. The leader of India's non-violent independence movement was killed on the 30th of January 1948 in New Delhi. Gandhi had led India to independence from British colonial rule in 1947 through his philosophy of non-violence and civil disobedience. His efforts for peace, reconciliation and the promotion of Hindu-Muslim unity were instrumental in India's struggle for freedom, but they also earned him both admiration and intense opposition. Gandhi's assassin, Nathuram Godse, was a Hindu nationalist who opposed Gandhi's efforts to reconcile with Muslims, especially after the partition of India and the creation of Pakistan. Godse believed that Gandhi had appeased Muslims at the expense of Hindus, particularly in his advocacy for the protection of Muslim rights. On the day of the assassination, Gandhi was on his way to a prayer meeting in Birla House when Godse approached him. He bowed before Gandhi and then shot him 3 times at close range. Gandhi, mortally wounded, died shortly afterwards, and Godse was later arrested and then executed for the murder. Gandhi's assassination plunged India into deep sorrow and marked a tragic end for the life of a man referred to as the father of the nation. His death highlighted the deep divisions in post-independence India and left a legacy of peace and non-violence that endures worldwide.
With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
Next up is the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King, the iconic leader of the American Civil Rights Movement, was assassinated on the 4th of April in 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. King had been a tireless advocate for racial equality, non-violent protest and economic justice. He played a pivotal role in major civil rights campaigns, including the famous Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington, where he delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. In the years leading up to his death, King had broadened his focus to issues including poverty and the Vietnam War, organising the Poor People's Campaign to address economic injustice. On the evening of his assassination, King was standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, where he was staying while supporting a sanitation workers' strike. A sniper's bullet struck King in the neck, and he was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared dead at the age of 39. James Earl Ray, a fugitive with a criminal background, was arrested and later confessed to the crime, though questions about the full scope of the conspiracy and possible complicity remain. King's assassination sparked riots across the country and deepened the national sense of loss. His death marked a turning point in the civil rights movement, but his legacy of justice and non-violence continues to inspire generations. OK, into our top 3 now, and we're delving into the assassination of Julius Caesar, the Roman general and dictator. And this, of course, happened on the Ides of March, the 15th of March in 44 BC, in a plot orchestrated by a group of Roman senators. Caesar had recently declared himself dictator for life, consolidating unprecedented power and effectively marking the end of the Roman Republic. His increasing authority and centralisation of power alarmed many, especially those who feared that he was positioning himself to become a monarch, undermining the Republic's traditional checks and balances. The conspiracy against Caesar was led by Brutus, a former ally, whom Caesar had pardoned after a previous rebellion, and Cassius, among others. They believed that by killing Caesar they could restore the power of the Senate and preserve the Roman Republic. On the Ides of March, Caesar attended a Senate meeting at the Theatre of Pompey, where the conspirators attacked him. According to legend, he was stabbed 23 times by the conspirators, including Brutus, whose betrayal is famously immortalised in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar with the line, "Et tu, Brute?" Caesar's assassination plunged Rome into chaos and civil war. His death did not restore the Roman Republic, but instead led to the rise of his adopted heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus, who ultimately became the first Roman emperor. Caesar's assassination marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire.
Across the country, around the world, disbelief was the first reaction. Then a great outpouring of grief, shock and revulsion.
And number 2, it's the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. It happened on the 22nd of November 1963 in Dallas, Texas, while Kennedy was riding in a motorcade with his wife Jacqueline, the Governor of Texas, John Connally, and Connally's wife, Nellie. Kennedy was shot at approximately 12:30 p.m. as his car passed through Dealey Plaza. A gunman, later identified as Lee Harvey Oswald, fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, striking Kennedy in the back of the head. Kennedy was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital but was declared dead shortly after. Oswald was arrested shortly after the shooting, but he was killed 2 days later by nightclub owner Jack Ruby while being transferred from the city jail to the county jail. Now this raised further suspicions and conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination, as many questioned whether Oswald acted alone. The Warren Commission, established by President Lyndon B. Johnson, concluded in 1964 that Oswald was the lone assassin. However, alternative theories about multiple gunmen, government involvement, or other motives have persisted, creating an enduring public debate. Kennedy's assassination shocked the nation and the world, marking a turning point in American history and leaving a lasting impact on American politics and culture. And taking our top spot is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, his killing on the 28th of June in 1914 in Sarajevo is widely regarded as the spark that ignited World War I. Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, the Duchess of Hohenberg, were shot and killed by Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb member of the nationalist group Black Hand. The assassination occurred during their visit to Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which had been annexed by Austria-Hungary in 1908, causing resentment among Serbs and other Slavic groups. Princip and his co-conspirators sought to end Austro-Hungarian rule in the region and promote the cause of Serbian nationalism. Initially, a bomb thrown at the Archduke's car missed, but later, when the couple's route was changed, they encountered Princip, who shot them both at close range. Franz Ferdinand died almost immediately, while Sophie succumbed to her injuries shortly after. The assassination set off a chain of diplomatic events. Austria-Hungary, with Germany's support, issued an ultimatum to Serbia, which led to Serbia's partial acceptance and Austria-Hungary's declaration of war. This quickly escalated into a global conflict, as alliances were triggered and nations entered the war. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand is considered the key event that precipitated World War I. So there we go, that wraps up our list of the top 10 assassinations that have forever altered the course of history. As ever, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Times Radio History, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.